JayZ and Meek Mill recently announced teaming up with some influential billionaires to form an organization that's going to fight for reform in the criminal justice system. More about their agenda and the surprising bipartisan list of who's part of this. Coming up next, this is Relevant Daily.
Relevant Daily.
Hey everyone, I'm Cameron Strang. Welcome to Relevant HQ and day 2 of Relevant Daily, where we are going to bring you the latest at the intersection of faith and culture. Remember to subscribe wherever you're watching this right now, and also grab the audio podcast that's available wherever you get your podcasts. Before we get into this fun story, I want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by Squarespace once again. Whether you need a landing page, a beautiful gallery, a professional blog, or an online store, it's all possible with Squarespace. They have award-winning templates, customizable settings, even powerful e-commerce solutions, all without a single plugin. And right now, Squarespace is offering Relevant Daily viewers a special deal. Head over to squarespace.com/relevant for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch your site, use the offer code RELEVANT to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Major thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring Relevant Daily. Go support them, squarespace.com/relevant. Well, like I said, big news in the world of hip hop and billionaire business. This surprising group of people are coming together to fight for very important reform in the criminal justice system. Here to tell us more about it, Relevant Senior Editor Tyler Huckabee. Welcome once again to Relevant Daily, Tyler.
Great to be back, Cameron.
Tell us what's going on.
All right, so unlike a lot of criminal justice reform initiatives, what JayZ and Meek Mill are trying to do here with this team is very, very narrow, has a very, very narrow focus. They're focusing specifically on reforming parole and probation policies. JayZ has been invested in the criminal justice reform fight for a long time. He's bringing along Meek Mill for this one, but he's also got a very surprising and very, very well-off collective he's working with here. People like Michael Rubin with the 76ers, Robert Kraft owns the Patriots, Clara Woodsai owns the Nets, and there's also hedge fund managers. There's a cryptocurrency guru who's involved with this. These are big names from across the business perspective and also from across the political spectrum. These people have donated to both parties, but they're able to kind of come around this issue of criminal justice reform. And they're being led by a guy by the name of Van Jones. He's a longtime activist. Most people will be familiar with him, if they're familiar at all with him, through his appearances on CNN. He worked with the Obama administration on some green energy initiatives, but criminal justice reform has always been his big passion.
Now, is this connected to the first step legislation that came through about a month ago? It was very surprising because it seemed like it was something more liberal activists were pushing for reforms in the criminal justice system, and then the Trump administration and others like Robert Kraft, who's part of this new organization, which are very outspoken conservatives, also joined forces. And it seemed to be the first truly bipartisan legislation to be pushed through in quite a while.
Yeah, advocates for criminal justice reform have definitely found a surprisingly sympathetic ear in President Donald Trump, considering that it is generally considered more of a sort of lefty cause. This isn't directly connected to that, but it'd be hard to argue that there isn't some momentum that was made by earlier decisions from President Trump and also a lot of involvement from Jared Kushner. The real roots of this began almost a decade ago. Meek Mill was arrested. Before he was even famous, he was involved in a big arrest in his hometown of Philadelphia. It was a very convoluted arrest that is still ongoing to this day because of the probation that he was sentenced to after the arrest. His probation has continued to extend for reasons that activists consider to be sort of petty, minor infractions, things that even prosecutors, his parole officers say are just not that big of a deal, but have extended his parole even longer. This has given people who care a lot about parole reform, probation reform, a cause to really rally around in Meek Mill.
How did these hip hop stars align with these billionaires to form this organization? I'm assuming that the billionaires are helping to fund the work, right?
That's right. And where it really seems to have began, actually, is apparently Meek Mill became friends with the 76ers owner, Rubin. They forged a friendship, and as Rubin continued to see how much Meek Mill had fought and how unfair the case was against him, he was willing to get some of his billionaire pals around to join this initiative, while Meek Mill was able to bring JayZ on board. JayZ, like I said, is very passionate about this. He paid for Meek Mill's lawyers while Meek Mill was locked up. Meek Mill has also been involved. He paid for lawyers for 21 Savage during his deportation case with ICE. He paid Lil Wayne's taxes when Lil Wayne couldn't afford to pay the IRS. JayZ cares a lot about this, but this definitely represents a huge step forward in the cause, just owing to the sheer wealth behind it.
Right. So have Van Jones or anybody, have they outlined a specific agenda or things that they're advocating for other than just reform?
Just recently they did, yes. Van Jones gave an interview where he talked a little more about some of the specifics of what they wanted to do. One big one is, according to a video on their website, they want to really reduce the number of 4.5 million people who are currently locked up on probation and parole charges in America. They want to make sure that there's more universal laws for what it takes to extend probation or parole. They want to put a cap on that, say there's a limit to how long somebody can be on parole or probation. They also want to, as Jones puts it, move away from sticks and towards carrots. Right now, it's very easy to get your probation or your parole lengthened because of things you do that the state considers to be bad. They want to talk about incentives towards reducing your parole, things like going to community college or going to rehab, getting a job. These sorts of things that they think would be way more effective at helping get people out of the system.
That's awesome. What else is going on in the Relevant world? Relevant Daily yesterday, you brought us 3 gems, a main one and then two quickies. What do you got for us today?
So just last night, SBC President J.D. Greer addressed some new reforms that the Southern Baptist Convention intends to implement in light of the ongoing crisis that came out from the Houston Chronicle about the sex abuse within SBC Church.
So the Southern Baptist Convention, you're throwing the acronyms down, spelling it out for people. Southern Baptist Convention, obviously you're referring to the news from last week. Houston Chronicle broke about long-term and widespread sexual abuse by Southern Baptist pastors and leadership that was covered up, and they exposed it, documented more than 700 cases of abuse, and there's presumed to be more. So finally, the SBC is responding with actual policy shifts. What are they going to be doing?
Well, they have a very widespread, this is all very fast and happening very quickly, but they were able to announce a few things they intend to start implementing right away. One of them is a 12-week, 20-minute training resource called Becoming a Church That Cares Well for the Abused, that Greer hopes will be implemented in all SBC institutions. Obviously, the SBC still tries to maintain a sense of autonomy and self-governing within the church organization, but they plan on pushing this on any organization that wants to be associated with the SBC. This was put together by people like Rachel Denhollander, who of course has become a very prominent activist for sexual abuse reform and how Christian institutions handle this. Also, there's a counselor named Darby Strickland. Social workers are involved in this. So the pedigree behind the training seminar is definitely impressive. They also say they will be open to starting to consider disassociating with SBC churches that employ sexual abusers. This was obviously a major ask, and they didn't go quite so far as to say that it's an automatic withdrawal, but they did say that there would be major questions raised, and they would be open to that idea.
A lot of the coverage that we've had in the last week about it has pointed out that one of the reasons why this was able to last so long and systemically is that unlike the Catholic Church, which has a hierarchy like this and was choosing to cover up stuff, the Southern Baptist Convention is more of a co-op, in that the governing body kind of issues theological guidelines, but they don't necessarily impose strict rules the way some denominations do. And that we were finding, or the reporting was finding, that it was known that like people who were like convicted sexual predators are being hired as children's pastors and youth pastors in Southern Baptist churches because there was no governing policy saying that wasn't allowed, which is crazy.
That's correct.
That the SBC can say, you can't have a female as a pastor, but they can't say you can't have a sexual predator as your children's pastor.
And they actually affirmed that they are going to continue to not allow the ordination of women at this meeting yesterday, saying that they did not foresee any change on that, which of course was a major issue that a lot of people brought up in light of this. So these reforms are significant. He called specifically for investigations into Sovereign Grace Ministries and Second Baptist in Houston, two institutions that were highlighted in the report. I don't want to downplay the significance of that, but there are definitely going to be some activists who say these reforms are not sweeping enough to really address the issue.
Wow, that's big. And we'll keep covering it. Follow along at relevantmagazine.com for the latest. It seems like every day there's more news coming out about that huge scandal in the SBC. Anything else you want to end on a lighter note? You got to criminal justice reform and sexual abuse in the SBC. I mean, intersection of faith and culture. Surely you got something else for us.
Well, I don't know how much lighter this will get, but how do you feel about tornado damage to end the day on? That'll do all right. This is an interesting conundrum for a church. This comes to us from Wetumpka, Alabama. First Baptist Church there suffered some significant damage in a tornado. A local casino offered them $250,000, $250,000 in
I thought it was $25,000. $250,000?
But
I thought it was $25,000.
It was $25,000. It is only $25,000. I misspoke. $25,000 to repair the damage.
$25,000 in Wetumpka is going to build you a mansion.
It's basically $250,000 in Wetumpka dollars. But they turned it down because they thought it would not be they could not morally justify taking that kind of money from an institution that supported legalized gambling, which they stand against. They said that they hope the casino will donate it to somebody else who can use it, but they are not going to use it themselves.
There you go. Way to stand your ground. I don't know how I feel about that, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, I don't have it's his principles. I'm not going to step in on his own principles.
Good
for it. Good on you, Pastor James.
Good on you, Pastor James. All right, well, that'll do it for Relevant Daily. Make sure to subscribe wherever you are watching this right now. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Tune in. Every morning, we're going to be bringing you the latest of our coverage at the intersection of faith and culture. A little 10-minute update, keep you in the know. Watch it every morning. Hey, and if you want to listen to it on your drive time or your way to work or way home from work, go ahead and subscribe to the audio podcast. Wherever you get your podcasts, just search for Relevant Daily and we're right there. Many thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring the show. Remember, go to squarespace.com/relevant to start your free trial. And when you're ready to launch your website, use promo code RELEVANT to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Take advantage. I've used that code many, many times. Well, on that note, we'll wrap things up. Many thanks for tuning in. Make sure to tune in tomorrow. We'll see you, everybody. This is Relevant Daily.
Relevant Daily.